Hey everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm back on another review. And this time I'm continuing the Kingsman series with Kingsman: The Golden Circle. It's a 2017 spy thriller comedy film directed by Matthew Vaughn, and it stars Taron Egerton, Colin Firth, Julianne Moore, Mark Strong, Halle Berry, Pedro Pascal, Channing Tatum, Jeff Bridges, and Elton John. In this film, when an attack on the Kingsman headquarters takes place and a new villain rises, Eggsy and Merlin are forced to work together with the American agency known as the Statesman to save the world. So, what did I think of Kingsman: The Golden Circle? Well, this is my first time seeing this one, and there's a lot of things that I really do not like about this movie, but even then, I still enjoyed it. It's kind of it's closer to a 7 than an 8 for sure, but this film does a lot that really I did not like, and I'll get to that. Let me get to the cast. Also, this is a spoiler review because I have to talk about certain things about the plot of this film that I'm not really a fan of. So, cast. Taron Egerton plays Eggsy. I think he does a great job. I think he's improved quite a bit from the first, even though I think he still did good in the first. He just had some moments that I wasn't a fan of in the first. His emotional scenes are definitely a lot better in this, and I do like him. Colin Firth plays Harry Hart again. He's not in this film as much as you'd think, given that he's first billed, and I have a bit of an issue with that. He has him... That's the thing. It's hard to spoil this movie when that was a big part of the promotion, was that Harry's still alive, and there's a convoluted reason for why he's still alive. But, I'll get into that. But he still does a good job. He's not as good as in the first, and I'll try to get into that. Julianne Moore as Poppy, she gives a decent performance, but I don't find her menacing at all. And she's a big issue I have with this film, because she doesn't really pose that much of a threat, and given what she does in this film, I'm a bit like, really? Like, she did all this? I don't believe her. She seems too stupid. Mark Strong plays Merlin. I really like him. I wish he got a bit more to do in the film. Halle Berry plays Ginger Ale. She's the gadget girl for Statesman. She's fine. Pedro Pascal plays Whiskey. Even though I am not a fan of Pedro Pascal as a person, I think he does well in the film overall. Channing Tatum plays Tequila. He's another member of Statesman. He's barely in the film. Gets like one sort of fight scene. And again, I'll talk about how the Statesmen are in this film. And Jeff Bridges is Champ. He's also barely in the film. He's another name to fill out the cast. I love Jeff Bridges. And Elton John plays Elton John, literally. Gives a fine enough performance. He's also not really in it much. That's one thing I want to talk about right off the bat. I want to talk about the things that really annoyed me with this film, because I hope they don't keep doing this. This is the sequel to The Secret Service, right? So you expect them to do something more outrageous than the first film. The first film killed off Harry Hart. Also, I did say spoilers. It says in the title. They killed off Harry Hart in the first film. I'd say about halfway through, maybe. Around that. And here they bring him back. They killed off Michael Caine's character. I'm also kind of spoiling the first film. But yeah, they killed off many people. Also, if you're watching this review and it says spoilers, probably expect there to be some spoilers from the first. This film, I'm not a huge fan of what it does in the first half to up the stakes, because you have our villain in this one, Poppy, and she really, just literally because of this fight scene at the beginning, that's a very well done fight scene, and I'll get to the fight scenes, between Taron Egerton and the guy from the first one, the reject Kingsman that turned to the bad guy's side, he's also somewhat alive because the implant in his head didn't go off because Eggsy damaged it with his ring. Really convoluted. But uh, his arm is left in a van in Eggsy's car, and it hacks into the system and tells where all the Kingsman agents are, and basically all of the Kingsmen are wiped out, including Roxy from the first film, who I was expecting them to do more with her. One of Eggsy's friends, who's dog sitting JB, so JB is now dead, so nothing in the first film really matters for that. And the entire Kingsman building is just gone. So, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that plot point. It felt like everything was taken out without any real build-up. It felt like just a random thing to do. Michael Gambon is in this for literally a minute as the new head of the Kingsman, and he's just wiped out. Really? You have Michael Gambon and you just fucking kill him like that? So I'm not a big fan of how this film tries to one-up the first with making this villain menacing. It does a similar thing, I'd say, to No Time to Die with Rami Malek's character. I don't buy Rami Malek doing all the things he does in that film, and I do think that a lot of the actions in this film feel very similar to that. So, kind of imitating the Bond movies in a very bad way there. Also, the way that... I actually had to remind myself, because there was a lot. The tone shifts, for sure, have been multiplied in this film. There's a lot of scenes. You'll go from a super serious scene to a comedy scene. The car chase, or the fight in the car as it's driving, was definitely meant to be kind of comedic, actiony. Still a very well done action scene, and again, I'll get to that. But I don't know why I'm fighting with myself on this. But you go from that to the very serious scene of all of the Kingsmen being wiped out and everything, and then you're on to something else. This film needed more balance with its tone. The first film did this as well. You'd go from a kind of funny scene, you went from the church massacre in the first film to Harry being killed, and it's supposed to be a very serious moment, and it is. But you have that happen so many times in this film, so many times that happens where you go from a very serious scene to a comedy scene, and I think it is very horribly done in certain parts. And I think that's the worst one is possibly, again, spoilers, massive spoilers. The only death I think really that worked in this was Merlin. Even though I was hoping for Merlin to kill a couple guys before he died. He kills a couple guards after he steps off of a landmine. But I was hoping for him to get a fight scene or something. But no, I was a bit disappointed with that. But I still did feel something when Merlin's death happened. I thought it really worked emotionally. I enjoyed Merlin as a character for sure, and I love Mark Strong as an actor. But I will say that this film does disappoint me on quite a few things. The cast especially. The acting overall is pretty good in this film, don't get me wrong. But you have you have Halle Berry in this. You have Channing Tatum, Jeff Bridges. All three of them barely get anything to do. Channing Tatum has a sort of fight scene with Harry Hart and Eggsy, but it's not really that much. And when you see him on the poster holding the gun, you expect him to shoot somebody, but he really doesn't. He's out of commission for most of the film. And Halle Berry's character, I know she's like the gadget girl, but at the end of the movie, they imply that she's become the new statesman, like a new statesman to replace whiskey. But we really haven't seen much of her abilities other than like her just doing her normal job, and they're trying to be like, oh, every time one of the gadget people tries to do like field work, they get shut down. But they really don't have her show anything to really earn it. And I was a bit disappointed with that because I love Halle Berry. Seeing her in John Wick Chapter 3, which I think that was around that year, 2 years after this. 2 years after this, she was in John Wick Chapter 3. But, like, she didn't really show much of anything, to be honest. And Jeff Bridges, he's, again, shown on one of the posters holding a gun. He doesn't shoot anybody. He doesn't get into any of the action scenes. I was very disappointed with that. I know he's not young. I know he's a bit old. But I still would have liked to have seen that. Another thing that this film has a bit of an issue with, the length. This film is 2 hours and 21 minutes. The first film was 2 hours and 9 minutes. So this film is 12 minutes longer. The first film did not have a pacing issue for me. At no point was I bored. I was pretty much interested the entire time. That's why I have it as a 10 out of 10. I enjoyed pretty much every aspect of that film. And I was having a fucking blast revisiting it. This film, like, I still enjoy it. I wouldn't say I'd like go back to it often. I'd much rather go back to Secret Service. But I can 100% understand people who weren't fully into this sequel, because again, it does continue the like killing off characters with little to no fanfare, which kind of happened with Harry, but in the first film it worked. In the first film, him getting shot by Valentine worked. In the second film, in this film, when Poppy kills all the Kingsman agents, including Roxy, who barely has done anything in this second film, it feels more like we have to up the stakes artificially, you know? So it was definitely a bit of a disappointment going from Samuel Jackson to Julianne Moore, even though I love Julianne Moore as an actress, but I do not think she was right for this role. Like, I can't think of who I would have cast, but I know I probably wouldn't have cast Julianne Moore. Again, I like her, but not the right casting. Also, of all the action sequences in this film, which there are quite a few, there really isn't a standout action sequence. Now, I still think the action is very well done, and it's a bit more varied than in the first film, but the first film has the church sequence, which is a very entertaining, very pulse-pounding, insanely well choreographed, well shot, very physically directed action scene. In this film, you have, again, the car chase, or the fight between Eggsy and the guy from the first film in the car, which is a very well done fight scene. I guess that would be kind of the standout, but nothing up to the level of the first film. There's the shootout in the snow and everything. There's them stopping the thing before it hits them stopping the lift before it hits the lodge. There's the big old shootout fight scenes in Poppyland. There's really good action sequences in this film, but nothing that I feel is even close to as memorable as the church scene in the first, because the church scene was so brutal, violent. This film also feels a bit toned down violence-wise in certain ways, because there's literally like a meat like You know what I mean? Like the fucking things you use for meat, you put it in the top, whatever. Meat grinder. That's like human sized. And when people get put into it, I was expecting like more blood to be involved, but no, they just kind of turn into the meat, and it's like, oh, like I'm expecting a bit more. Like there are gory moments in this film, but some of them don't look that great. The CGI blood at times looks a bit wonky, especially like there's a bit where like the drug makes these people's eyes pop or something, and I was like, it doesn't look that great. Also, the plot of the villain. The plot of the villain is interesting. Like the the whole thing of selling these drugs and them having this thing in them that is basically poison that'll slowly basically just kill them off. And the president has to agree to this antidote being delivered in order to save the people. Um, it's an interesting plot, but again, I don't think Poppy as a character has enough of a like. Yes, she still thinks she's the good guy. Um, kind of like the villain in the first one, Valentine, but she doesn't really have a lot of a personality other than she's into 50s nostalgia. That's about all I know about her. At least the guy in the first one, he thought that he was doing good by himself as a Greenpeace type of person. He was killing all these people to stop climate change. And it's at least a bit more interesting, and you believe that this villain, like, believes what he's peddling. This one, I'm not 100% sure because Julianne Moore's character doesn't really have much of a drive to her. But even those things said, this film, even with all that, this film did make me feel things. There are a few scenes where I genuinely think they did a great job. There's the scene with Harry being revealed as being still alive. I think that was a good reveal. The bit where Eggsy does a certain thing to help Harry get his memory back, basically trauma, like reliving the trauma and then realizing who he actually is. I liked the scene a lot. I liked it when he recognized Eggsy. The the scene where Merlin dies, even though I wish he got a bit more to do beforehand, I didn't cry, but I did feel feelings, and I feel feelings. I did get what the film was trying to do, and it did actually affect me. I was like, okay, this is actually really, really well done. Um, Again, the action scenes are well done. They are. And I think great action scenes can help lift an action movie that has like a less than substantial villain or something like that. I definitely think the action scenes can help. It's like a comedy. Like, at least in an action movie, if your action isn't the greatest or best done, like if it's kind of stale or whatever, you can have a great villain to lift it. With something like a comedy, if the comedy is bad, then you're kind of fucked. Another thing about the scene where the frickin' people, the Kingsmen are killed and Harry Hart's house is killed and all that, or is destroyed. Blech, I'm sorry, I'm having a day. At that moment, there was a really bad comedic moment that I just think did not fit at all with what they were fucking trying to do. Like, it's insanely horribly done. Like, I get it. It's a spy comedy thriller, but you need to know when to put the comedy. And there were more than a few moments of comedy in this that I just hated and just felt really tacky. Like, not even bad taste, just really wrong place, wrong time. But still, there were moments that legitimately made me laugh, for sure. And overall, like, it's a fun enough movie if you can get past some of the issues that I talked about, I still think you can have fun with it. But overall, it was a bit of a disappointment for me. It is closer to a 7 than an 8, or closer to a 7 than a 9, but I did give it an 8. It's a fun enough movie, a bit long for sure, but it still kind of works. But yeah, that was my review of Kingsman: The Golden Circle. If you've seen the film, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you have any recommendations, put them down there as well. And movie reviewer next door.